So, whatever our nationality, wherever we have come from, we all enter into this experience called life. We also exit through the gateway called death. And each of us is born of a woman. Dr. Ernest Holmes teaches us that the creative field through which we demonstrate our core beliefs while we are here has been called the Holy Mother because it is impregnated with divine ideas. As children of the Most High, we birth our own ideas through that creative field, no matter how big or how small they might be. You often hear me open our celebration with a prayer, recognizing Mother, Father, Great Spirit. So I'm not speaking to a person who's up in the sky. I'm speaking to the idea of a masculine-feminine principle of creation, or what is known as first cause. It is androgynous. It is a creative energy. It is kind of like a universal parent that is both masculine and feminine in its nature. And this morning what I want to talk about is the divine feminine aspect of that universal energy, or what it does. So the divine feminine principle of nature gives birth to the ideas of spirit. And those ideas move through the universal subjective mind, where they are acted upon by spiritual laws. And the subjective mind, or the subconscious intelligence, which is kind of like a giant soup that we're floating through, has also been called the womb of nature because it is receptive to spirit. And it is filled with all possibility as potential. Rumi says, beyond space and time, there is a field. Meet me there in your imagination. So that field is just like the divine feminine. It contains all possibilities awaiting our recognition. So let's affirm together, I live and move and have my being within a field of possibility. So I can pluck one of those butterflies out of there if I choose. I can align myself in that light if I choose. I can roll over in the grass if I choose. But in order to access the potential of that field, it has to move through the power of the mind. And because of our individual belief systems, or what Eckhart Tolle calls our book of lies, sometimes we access it consciously, but more often we access it unconsciously. There are actually 2,000 thoughts per second moving through your mind. Only 3% of those thoughts are conscious. So you can imagine how important it is to really understand and know what's in your belief system, because that's what's moving through you most of the time. So all we really have to do is subjectivize some new beliefs and embody a greater awareness of who we really are as spiritual beings. And as Jane mentioned during the sharing, our first beliefs come from our parents. They teach us what's right and wrong. And then we go out into the world. Sometimes we have siblings, we have teachers, we have preachers, we have people who put the kink in the hose that Jane shared with. Beautiful analogy. So all of that influences what we embody in our belief system. Whatever happens in the mind affects the body. And the body supports the soul. And the soul is what connects us to the Great Spirit. When we are in alignment with the evolutionary process, the divine feminine energy moves through us and it creates. When we get caught up in the old beliefs or the beliefs that aren't working, a sense of separation happens and we believe that we are not powerful, that we are weak, that we are not good enough, that we don't have enough abundance. Fill in the blank with whatever you're working on. So what happens when that occurs is that the mind, body, spirit, emotion connection breaks down. And then the physical challenges begin to manifest. So as the divine human creator incarnate that I am, I invoke, I decree, I command, and then the law responds to that energy based upon my belief system. So the only blockage we can ever really experience is through our own thoughts. And the motto for this whole teaching is change your thinking, change your life. So let's affirm that together. Change your thinking, change your life. Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind teaching, who's a very powerful a very powerful individual. Traveled a lot in his lifetime, studied a lot of the different religions and the different belief systems. And from that, he took what was working and he created the Science of Mind teaching. And he tells us that the intelligence by and through which we perceive that there is a spiritual presence and an infinite mind in the universe constitutes our receptivity to it and decides its flow through us. So spirit can only give us what we can perceive, what we can imagine is in that field of possibilities. So can you imagine? Can you believe that there's another possibility for your expression? I remember when I first arrived in Lake Lure, North Carolina. It was after the major car crash when they had to cut me out of my BMW. That's a whole other story. But I was unemployed, and I was walking through Chimney Rock with a friend that had come to visit, and there was a paper bag laying on the sidewalk. And I went for it. And my friend that was traveling the journey with me said to me, "Oh, that's just trash." And so if you don't remember anything else from today's sharing other than this is from Scripture, get behind me, Satan. I might have been broke, I might have been in a state of healing, but I didn't stop praying. And when I picked up that bag, it was from the gem mine in Chimney Rock, and inside of it were 7 chakra stones that I still use to this day to receive messages from the Great Spirit when I'm working with the crystal bowls. So I encourage you to allow your imagination to perceive something beyond what is just in front of you. The laws of nature are immutable. But due to the spontaneous recognition of those laws, we have the power to bring them into practical use. It's just like electricity existed at the time of Moses. But it wasn't until we harnessed it, and thank goodness we did, because we really needed it this morning, that we were able to use it. So the divine mind is infinite. It contains all knowledge and all wisdom. But we cannot derive any benefits from it that we don't access through the power of our thinking. So what we draw from it we must draw through the channel of our own mind. Holmes would say, love points the way. Law makes the way possible. Ignorance of these laws doesn't make a difference. They're still going to work. For instance, if you jump off of a building in the third dimension, unless it's November and you're in New Mexico and it's balloon festival and there's one to catch you, inevitably you're going to be propelled by that gravity down to Mother Earth. So everything that exists in the universe was once an idea in someone's mind, because the possibilities of what lie in that field have to move through you. And it's really important that we understand how these laws work and we get a better idea of how to use them so that we can bring our dreams and our desires forward. Dr. Holmes says, the principle that we have to demonstrate is perfect. And insofar as we can compel the mind to perceive this perfection, so far will it automatically demonstrate. So it's all about balance. The possibility of differentiating what's in that field is limitless. But we have to be able to conceive the idea before the divine feminine can move it into expression. So how do we supply the avenue for it to move through? We have this wonderful thing here called spiritual mind treatment, which is also commonly known as affirmative prayer. And so in order to recognize who we really are as spiritual beings, the first step of that is recognizing the possibility of what can come to us. So the universal power, the Great Spirit, God, Buddha, Allah, whatever you choose to call it, is there. It's always ready. But we have to recognize it and recognize what it is of that we choose to draw in for ourselves. So let's take, for example, the idea of creativity. Michelangelo always said that David was inside the rock waiting to come out. And so David recognized his power of creativity when he began that journey. And then he unified with that power and he began to take the action of that and began to chip away what was blocking David from emerging from that big giant marble rock. So that's the second step of treatment, is unifying with that idea of creativity and making it your own. Then the third step is to affirm, to believe that that can really be possible for you, to get in alignment with the idea that that creativity, that creative force, that divine urge, whatever it is you choose to call it, can move through you to express as your experience. And then the fourth step is to give thanks. And because the universal power or presence is androgynous, it's not a person, it's not masculine, it's not feminine, the thanking isn't about God, it's about you. It's about you being receptive to whatever that idea of creativity is for you. And then we just release the idea into the law, and the law works. So life always becomes to us the particular thing that we need when we believe that it becomes to us that particular thing. So in a nutshell, the creative power operates within the confines of spiritual law. The creative power moves through the divine feminine. And then the creative power outpictures everything we experience. So as long as I'm in alignment with spiritual laws, no thing can possibly get in my way. I can create whatever I can imagine. And so can you. Thank you, and namaste.